And now for our VIPs. First, we were able to bring Fatima down from Canada, and I'm going to let her give a little word.
So my name is Fatima. I'm a Code for Canada fellow working with Transport Canada on making the skies safer for drone pilots in Canada to fly within the regulations. But before that, I was here as a Microsoft Civic Tech fellow and then in Boston working for the city of Boston. So I'm super passionate about civic tech. Noel invited me to co-host the plenary sessions in the afternoon, so I'm super excited, happy to be here. Come chat.
So in the afternoon, after lunch, if you have any questions, Fatima is going to be running the Slido. Next up is John Paul Farmer from Microsoft Civic.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's amazing to see all of you here. As Noel mentioned, the biggest school of data ever. Is this the biggest open data event that New York City's ever seen? It might be. It might be. I'm blown away. Quick story. I was down in Miami this week. And I'm not bragging. I was doing work, I promise. But it was sunny and beautiful, and I was able to get out on the water with the water keepers who focus on the issue of climate change that's affecting Miami. And I think we all know that Miami is especially impacted. We're all impacted to a certain extent, but Miami is actually seeing an existential threat here. And yet, you've only got a portion of society today that's actually engaged on the issue. An incredibly important issue, but only a portion of society is engaged. And that's a problem. I look at open data as a solution, a set of tools that can help us solve problems. And again, we see a portion of society that's engaged, all of you, and a lot of people outside of this room. And every year, that portion of society that's engaged on this issue of open data and the power of open data and what open data can do to help us solve problems, that's growing. That's growing every single year. So I want to thank all of you for being here right now. Noel mentioned BoardStat earlier. We're really impressed by the work that BetaNYC and Manhattan Borough President Gale Brewer, who's walking in right now in the back, have been doing to empower community board members with the tools that help them understand 311 data in their neighborhoods, help them be more responsive to their constituents. I was just talking to Councilmember Koo about this, because at the end of the day, it's wonderful when people want to gain tech skills. We want to support that. We want more of that. But at the same time, we can't expect everyone to do that. People have lives, they've got demands. There are lots of reasons somebody wouldn't be able to manipulate the raw data. And so we need to deliver the tools like Power BI, this Microsoft platform, that allow BetaNYC and Gale and the community boards and the Civic Innovation Fellows to go out and support the really important work of these community boards. I was just in a meeting yesterday, actually, on corporate data philanthropy. We're really talking about what's the role for businesses in supporting this ecosystem where data is so powerful. And one of the ways that we've been able to do that in the past is working with fantastic nonprofits like BetaNYC, like DataKind. Who here knows DataKind? Raise your hand if you know DataKind. Awesome. If you don't, look them up. DataKind's an incredible nonprofit that matches data scientists and AI engineers with nonprofits and social impact organizations that can't afford those kinds of skills full time, but need that kind of help. And we've been working with DataKind over the last few years to make sure that the expertise, the platforms, the tools that Microsoft has available are connecting where they can have the most impact. And I want to make sure I invite all of you to a lunch and learn session that we're having this coming Wednesday. It's called Machine Eatable. And Matt Stempek, is Matt in the room? Not yet. Well, Matt Stempek was on our team at Microsoft Cities along with Fatima a few years back, and it was his brainchild to create this monthly Lunch and Learn series. And we were really excited to make sure this happens during Open Data Week. So we can include it in the roster of events that Moda and others have put together so that all of you can come to Civic Hall, 12:30 on Wednesday for Machine Eatable, and hear about some of the amazing ways that data, open data, data science are solving problems today. We're really excited to be here today. I'm impressed by the turnout, I gotta say. This is incredible. I'm gonna be around all day, so please say hello. And once again, thanks to BetaNYC for pulling us together. Thank you.
Thanks, John, for all of your support. I don't think we have been able to do all of these School of Datas if it wasn't for Microsoft Civic contributing, so thank you. I'm really happy to bring up our city's third CTO, Alby Bocanegra, who's going to be talking about some of the amazing efforts that the city is pioneering and being the leader on in protecting our privacy.
Hey, morning everybody. So I'm Alby Bocanegra, and I'm happy to say that I am not the smartest person in this room, and I'm stoked about that. So that's not imposter syndrome. That's like me having eyeballs and being able to know what I'm surrounded with. So really excited about that. So a little bit about what I do is I'll give you just a quick snapshot. Is I run a small office of a team of really smart, scrappy civic technologists that really put residents at the center of tech. So one of my responsibilities, or one of the things I do, is I look at emerging technology and next-gen connectivity, because connectivity is part of my role, and look at how that impacts residents and how we can also leverage some of those technologies to improve their lives. But sometimes when you have some of that connectivity, it comes with some threats. And so one of the efforts that happens out of my office is what Noel was alluding to, which we signed a partnership, or we came into a partnership with the city of Barcelona and the city of Amsterdam, and we formed the coalition, the city's coalition for digital rights. So if you want to know more, I'll give you the brief snapshot, but if you want to know more, it's citiesfordigitalrights.org. But really the focus of that is ensuring that the residents have the power to control their digital lives. And so we're really, really focused on transparency, accountability, and with that comes the power of data and how we leverage that to empower residents. Because when I go to these big tech conferences and they see my title as a CTO, everyone in the room really wants to hear about how we're using cool widgets to make sure that everything's connected and things are moving quickly. And so when I get to the podium and they say, well, Alby, what makes a city a smart city? And I start talking about people, people start freaking out, and they're like, wait a minute, we're trying to sell more widgets. Alby, tell us about how widgets make cities smart. And so really my focus is about how people make a city smart, and how groups like BetaNYC, and how important having open data programs are in the city, because in my opinion, without work like this and without open data laws, we can't even begin to talk about a city being smart. And so that's the type of work that I get to do, which makes my job super exciting. And I get to engage with groups like BetaNYC, and I get amazing partners like the team at Moda. And so, it makes my job really exciting. And it also makes me super happy to know that we have elected officials, like the ones in the room, that are really behind this, because that gives it the horsepower that it needs. And so without that, no one solves this alone, right? Like, local government doesn't solve this alone, NGOs don't solve this alone, academia doesn't solve this alone. So it's the convening and the collaboration that gives us the opportunity to get it right. It used to be about who gets it first and who does it faster. To me, in my opinion, it's about who gets it right. And I think that's the superpower of New York, is we're more interested in getting it right and getting there together versus getting it first and doing it cooler. So really excited to be here. I'd love to chat with anyone about our city's coalition for digital rights, and really about how that, what kind of an impact that has for folks that are just here every day. Those of us in the room really understand the importance of that, but I'm concerned about everyday New Yorkers, people walking around, and what that means, and when connecting to, and now with the future of 5G, when connecting to things, what that means for them. And so, I'm here happy to discuss. I'm going to stick around most of the morning. And yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Awesome. And now we have, are you the third Chief Analytics Officer as well? The latest and greatest addition to the city's tech leadership team. We're iterating, yeah. After almost a year-long absence in this particular position, we're so happy that we have really strong leadership at the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, and been very fortunate around. For those of you who are in this hallway, you may want to just come on down and scoot on in. I see that there's a bunch of people in this hallway they're just now getting super stacked. But I actually do want to say Kelly, it's been great to meet with you. Since you've come in, you've really taken all of our concerns to heart and worked to make sure that they're on the agenda that you're focused on. And thank you for coming to Gale's office with Jeff from the Director of Operations to kind of talk about the future of technology. And so I'm really looking forward to working with Alby and yourself for the next 2 years, hopefully more. And with that, I want to bring Kelly up to say a few words.
All right, we're going to do an activity because it's Saturday morning. If you could all please stand up. All right, put both of your hands in the air. Really stretch. Really high. This is live streaming. If you're at home, do this too. All right, so I don't think you all are really putting your hands up high enough, so just on three, okay? 1, 2, 3 together. All right, the point of this exercise is you can always reach a little bit higher. Thank you all for having us and for coming in today. It is hard to believe it's actually been 4.5 months since I started here at the city. I had a very different first week than many folks may have in terms of orientation. I actually had to testify to City Council on the city's open data law, and so got to know Councilmember Koo, who's here today and will be speaking a little bit later, as well as his fantastic team. I am here not just to get you all jazzed up for the rest of today, but also to talk about Open Data Week. So today kicks off what is really over 45 sessions across all 5 boroughs. And what is really, really exciting about this particular Open Data Week is that we have over 20 city agencies represented. If there are any city agency or open data coordinators here in the room, can you raise your hand? All right, give them a hand. I really wanted to call them out because when I think about government and I think about good government, I think about actual public engagement and civic engagement. And that means that you all can come talk to us and can come see us and talk about what your thoughts are, how we're doing. And so I will also plug that Adrian and myself, we are hosting a town hall today at 11:30. Please swing by if you want to talk more about the office, about the work that we're doing, and hear a bit of a preview of what's up ahead. So I want to now roll into thank yous and hopefully not take up too much more of everyone's time. I think just to reciprocate some of the notes that Noel had said just now, the work that we do here at the city, there's so many people to thank, but BetaNYC, in partnership with so many of the organizations that you all have heard of and will continue to hear from, they have really been spearheading and been a cornerstone for the work. School of Data and the fact that Open Data Week exists itself would not be possible without Noel and the broader leadership team. So just a huge thank you again to you guys. And I will continue to keep embarrassing folks here in the room. So many of you know Adrian Schmoker, who also has had a huge hand in this work in moving the Open Data program forward. And I think if there's anything to note about not just work in government, but in this space in particular, is that it's not just about dreaming and about ideas, but it's about implementation. And it's about how do we actually put into practice what we're saying day to day. Adrian has taken on, really proud, she's taken on the Deputy Chief Analytics Officer role within the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics and for the city. And all of this work is just incredible, and she's she's not looking up. If Adrian can raise her hand right there, she's wonderful. All right, I could keep rolling and rolling with thank yous, but I will close out to say that I have a stack of thank you certificates from the mayor for folks here in the room who've been a part of the broader planning sessions and logistics. I just want to know, I'm not going to read through every single name here, but just a few to note. Ashley Cortez, Lauren Renee, Kate Nicholson, Emily Goldman, and Devin Balkind. And last but not never least, Noel Hidalgo. I have a stack of these certificates. Thank you.
these certificates. I wish city council members had the same franking privileges that the mayor had, so that way we could, you guys have, thank you. Before, I don't know where Councilmember Kalos is. I know that he had an event right before this, but he seems to be running a little bit late. But so we may have to skip him until he shows up. But I do want to echo Kelly's words about Adrian. Not to double on this, but Adrian, and I think it's appropriate to recognize Adrian in this audience. Because I met Adrian when Jackie Liu, who was in here. Where's Jackie? Jackie's going to be doing a presentation. She was the chief analytics officer at the Parks Department and had saw the events that we were putting on and the curriculum that we were starting to develop with Gale's office. And Jackie says, I have this crazy idea. We did this trees count crowdsourced event where in 2014, 2015, we got New Yorkers to go out and to hug trees, street trees. How many of you participated in the tree count census? All right, a few of you. When it comes around, because it's a decennial program, you should take a look and sign up because you get to go out and hug street trees. And if you don't know, trees are a very important part to our quality of life. They clean our air, they give us shade, they give us allergies in the spring. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to use them to lock our bicycles, but please don't do that. For the film and television department, it gives them an opportunity to inappropriately and illegally park up no parking signs. But street trees are very, very important. As we deal with climate change, they're absorbing more of the rainwater that we're dealing with. And so Jackie and the Parks Department wanted to go out and do this process to crowdsourcing and hugging street trees, finding out what's going on with the trees. And she wanted to do it through this hackathon. And Adrian comes in, working then at the CTO's office, and was like, yeah, we need to be doing this for all these different agencies. And so helped shepherd the CTO's team with the Parks Department to help stand up the data jam. And then subsequently, she was detailed to MODA when Amin was around. And Adrian has become a dedicated partner in making sure that the city's open data portal is the best that it possibly could be. And so as we went through the conversations of improving and thinking through how to improve the city's open data law, Adrian was a quiet advocate on the inside, making sure that all of our voices as users were represented. And she fought for the user, and she continues to fight for the user. And so it's been a real pleasure to work with you as a partner in all of your different positions inside of city government. And I look forward for you to continue to be there and hopefully be a director of an agency someday, if not a city council member someday. Thank you, Adrian. So, Councilmember Kalos hasn't arrived yet, so I texted him too. He doesn't respond to my text messages anymore. Does he respond to yours? Yeah. Should I just start saying, I'm Ben, where are you? Signed Gale? Like, just start impersonating? Yeah? Okay. Another great partner who has recently taken over the technology committee and his staff, who I want to, Elaine, thank you for all of the work that you've done as the chief of staff to Councilmember Koo. Councilmember Koo has recently become the chair of the technology committee over the last, a year and a half here, and walked in, took over from Jimmy Vaca and said, what do we need to do? Technology committee's here. Gale pretty much did the same thing. Vaca did the same thing. And it's been great to have another city council member who pretty much says, what does this chairmanship need to do in oversight for Do It in regards to the city's open data policy? So thank you for all of your great work and employing a great staff and saying, what do I need to do? Thank you. So come on up, and I'd love for you to say a few words. Thank you.
Let's give Noel a big round of applause. I have been to many meetings, but I think he's one of the most entertaining MCs, right? And when I see all of you, I see the future of America, you know? Especially many of you are know so much in technology, data, and all these other important things to make New York City one of the high-tech cities in the world. Yeah. And I want to say thank you to John Paul, Kelly, Alby, and all the volunteers, and all the speakers, and the whole BetaNYC team for many contributions to our community. So welcome everyone to Open Data Week and the NYC School of Data. This week is a really exciting time for the tech community as we explore how to best make use of this endless supply of usable data available here in the city of New York. We're here to make sure this extremely valuable resource not only works to serve the tech community, but it also serves the best interests of the people, businesses, infrastructure, and society of the New York City and beyond. This week, I was with BetaNYC at a small gathering at the Fashion Library in my district, where we simply taught our local community board members on how to use open data. This is exactly what open data should be a resource for local government by making civic engagement easier. In City Council, we have made great strides, and there's more on the horizon. I was proud to pass legislation that will make more of our data and agency reports machine readable so that it can be more easily digitized. With the strong advocacy of Manhattan Borough President Gale Brewer, we passed a resolution demanding more protections for public television networks. Finally, we are very excited to officially codify the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics into the city charter, which will provide our city with a firm advocate on behalf of open data in perpetuity. Okay? Yeah. And in 2019, we are even more on the horizon. In April, we will expand on an extremely important aspect of open data when we will host an oversight hearing on how the city uses its algorithms to gather information and make decisions. This is critical information that affects everything from school zoning to financial models. It's essential that we have full transparency on this process. I look forward to hearing from you for your input on this and more. I hope we will continue to expand on our achievements together. And I thank you for having today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Koo. We are, just to echo the one word, how you ended, we are at a very special time period. How many of you know about the ADS task force, the Automated Decision-Making Task Force that New York City has? Not too many of you. How many of you know about the algorithms that show up on Facebook and Twitter and that tell you about Amazon reporting and all that other stuff? You know that there's algorithms that do and tell you and encourage you to do certain things. Well, New York City government and all governments use algorithms. Those algorithms help them make decisions, like where schools are placed, how many teachers need to go there, where firehouses are located. If you're part of the public housing system, that you get 2 or 3 opportunities, maybe 2 opportunities to figure out where you live. After that, you're actually kicked out of public housing. You don't have an opportunity. If you are sentenced, if you unfortunately find yourself as part of the criminal justice system, and you need parole, and there's going to be a conversation about this, about Compass, and hosted by Legal Aid Society. If one small checkbox is incorrectly checked, you could not find yourself free. These are all determined, all of these different systems, firehouses, where your kids go to school, where fire department allocation is put together, where police department allocation, they're all determined by algorithms, and they're in a black box. Our criminal justice system, black box. We have a task force that can help bring transparency to these black boxes. And this process is known through the Automated Decision-Making Task Force, the ADS Task Force. Kelly is now the co-chair of that task force. If you're interested in how that task force is going to operate, and they have reports that are going to be coming out, and they need to do civic engagement, go to the town hall. If you're a developer and you're really concerned about making sure that you don't fuck up somebody's life and leave them incarcerated for longer, go take a look at the session that's hosted by the Legal Aid Society and talking about Compass. You'll actually be able to engage with someone who was incarcerated and who was locked away for an extended time period because of a non-transparent algorithm. So these are really important opportunities for us to change our future. Councilmember Koo is essentially going to be hosting the venue where we can make sure that our voices are registered inside a city council, so that way he can help lead the transparency of algorithms. So thank you, Councilmember Koo. We really appreciate it. This is super important stuff, right? Our future really fucking depends upon it. And speaking about our future, it has been an absolute honor to be able to pave this future with our Manhattan Borough President. She hates superlatives, so she just wants to get up on stage. But Gale, thank you for giving BetaNYC a home and recognizing the opportunity to work with a bunch of punks and anarchists who want to have fun. So.
You know, something must be wrong with Ben Kalos's cell phone, because not only does he always get back to me, but he's always bugging me. So I don't know what's going on, but he'll appear. Anyway, I am honored to be here. I want to thank Alby and Kelly, as well as Noel, Emily, and the students. Where are the BetaNYC students? Are you here, or are you just working downstairs? But I really want to thank you, because I know that we hear a lot about BetaNYC, but I think this is your 4th year of working with the CUNY students, and obviously it's the 7th year of Open Data Week. But the students who have come through, thanks to the good leadership of Noel and Emily and Aldrin and others in our office, they're really special. They're from all over the world. They have an interest in technology. They have an interest in making sure that our city and our country and our world are a better place. And obviously technology helps, but we learn from them more than they learn from us. So I just want to thank the students in particular. They're very special. Now, I always have stories. I want to give you one the other day I could not imagine. It's sort of tech related, but it is certainly where the world is at. So one of the community boards wanted to have a discussion about the state legislation that might pass on whether marijuana should be legal. You know, this is an issue particularly regarding criminal justice now, criminal justice in the future, etc. Guess who showed up? Every single company that's interested in making sure they make money over on cannabis. So the room was full, but not with anything to do with criminal justice. So it's a complicated city, because the community board had no idea how to handle this situation except to ask them all to leave and to say that they were more interested in the discussion about whether people have rights and so on and so on and so forth. Anyway, so it's a very complicated city. So when you think about how are we going to approach data to help New York City and the residents, everything has another aspect to it. It's never exactly clear as to what the outcome is going to be. That was a real shock. There were 400 people who showed up. The second thing I want to say is just in terms of the immediate future is the census, because I'm sure that you are aware that by April 1st, 2020, we all have to be counted. And we all know that it's going to be online. And without getting into all the specifics, we did go to, as an office, and took community board and other interested parties to Providence, Rhode Island, because it's the only test site online that this country produced. And we know that in 2020, with questionable what kind of questions are on the survey, and I would say 10 years ago, there were about 800 people hired, and this time the federal government's only going to give us money for 300. The city and the state will put in some funds. But to think in the back of your mind today and in the future, how can the work that you're doing be able to reach those folks who are not necessarily going to sign up for all the reasons you can imagine? You can be a senior, you can be undocumented, et cetera. Every penny that we get from the federal government is based on the census. And less money means less support for the residents of New York. So the census is important. The second thing, which is idea more than specific, is the New York City Charter. So as we sit here today, there is a 2019 charter. It includes representatives from all levels of government on the city level, and it will be on the ballot November 2019 in all 5 boroughs. And you might say, what in the world is going on with the charter? You can certainly go to Charter 2019, but there may be aspects. There's lots of opportunities for hearings and input. Jim Karras in our office, general counsel, is probably more knowledgeable about the charter than anybody else in New York City, because he had 21 years in the city council as general counsel. So I mention that because these are 2 very specific items that are taking place now in terms of policy, and they all have an open government technology policy aspect to them, and they really, really need your help. NYCHA. There are so many challenges on many levels, but just to give you an example of how much your open data philosophy, each and every one of you have contributed to the notion that government has to be transparent. You may not know that you're the one that did that, but if it wasn't for everybody here, then open government transparency would not be on the agenda. It is on the agenda because of you. And I mean that sincerely. NYCHA's a mess, we know that. There's a lot of folks trying to work on it, but Catherine Garcia, who was sanitation commissioner, now 90 days at NYCHA, and she's terrific. For those of you who don't know her, she herself is transparent, responsible, and innovative. So she walked in, and the first thing she saw, just in terms of lack of transparency, is that the resident leaders, and I spent a great deal of time at NYCHA, I think I know all the resident leaders in Manhattan, and there are a lot of them. They get from the federal government, depending on how many units they have, a little bit of money to work on family days, maybe getting turkeys at Thanksgiving, et cetera, to help the residents. They have no idea how much is in their account. They have no idea when they try to order bouncies and face painting and so on for the children at family days, what exactly is left. So something simple like putting online information about what we call TPS. That had never been done. They're ecstatic. Number 2, we know that at 311, we know how to call, we know text, we know how to send a photo and so on, and we can get with a case number where our info complaint is in terms of the process, more or less. I could improve it, but it's pretty good. NYCHA residents call a completely different number. It's called the CCC, Centralized Complaint, and they have no idea. So she's going to do the same thing for them that 311 has. Now that's transparency, but it's because of you, because of everyone in this room, particularly for people who are low income, deserve the same kind of transparency that every single government should be producing. And I think we should not forget that folks in the criminal justice system, for instance, people who are disabled, for instance, and people who are marginalized in different ways, we need to always be thinking, how can open government and all the work that you do, open data particularly, be of assistance? When I go to high schools, I'm trying to think, oh God, what am I going to say to students? You know, my kids are older, I'm older, I know the first thing to say now. The only thing is food at the school. That's always one issue. And I know how to handle that one. But the other one is, would you like to see free Wi-Fi in the neighborhoods? And every single hand goes up. So that's an example of, again, how would we be able to be of assistance to young people in particular who don't have the funding to be able to get the Wi-Fi at home. The library is packed. Every seat is taken, 20 minutes on the computer, et cetera. You know the deal. And I only have the funding for a cell phone, not for a computer. I live in a development, NYCHA, the walls are thick, wireless is hard, all the things that you know only too well. So these are the kinds of challenges that are not easy to address. Now, Noel and Emily and the folks with the CUNY students at BetaNYC have been trying to work with the community board. I see one. How many community board members are here? I see one right over here, 2, 3. Okay, so there's 4 or 5. How many people have been to a community board meeting? Okay, quite a few. So community boards, I'm a big supporter. There are 59 in New York, 12 in Manhattan. And so it has always been my idea, if you have all this data, it has to get to people who need it. And people don't care. I hate to say it, if you live in Manhattan, I don't care what goes on in Brooklyn, and nor does anybody else in Manhattan. And people who live on 86th Street don't give a darn what goes on 23rd Street, that I can tell you. And people on 110th Street don't care what goes on at 168th Street. People want to know what's going on in their neighborhood. And the great thing about New York is we care desperately about our neighborhoods. You know, even if we're there for a short period, or like me, you're there forever, you want to know what's going on in your neighborhood. And so the issue for me has always been taking this open data and letting people know what's going on in their neighborhood. It's hard to do. I mean, I know that we have the data, making it real time, making it accessible. And so that's what, between data science, data analytics, we have been trying to do that. And to the credit of the work that BetaNYC, whether it's board stat or trying to figure out how you can have the state liquor authority, you'll hear more about this later, having their information, because people do care about the noise, or as a small business owner, market share, all the things that go on in a neighborhood, bicycle transportation, all these topics. People want to know what is in my area. How many summonses are given? What is the status of the potholes? What's the status of parking? What's the status of this, everything in my neighborhood, the heat, the hot water, all those things. So it is easier said than done. And so to the credit of BetaNYC, they've been working with students and trying to get the community boards so that you can walk into a meeting like this. This is often the size of a community board meeting if there's a hot issue, and be able to explain to people what it is that is going on that is creating this discussion, whether it's a rezoning or just a bar that wants to locate, and all the challenges, and why it's a good thing to have the bar because there haven't been a lot of complaints, or whether it's a bad thing because there have been complaints. But only in my area is what I want to know. So I say all of this because having this data is great, but getting it to that level where it is both accessible, even getting the community boards to be located, having their meetings in places where there's internet connection, even that's an issue, because they have to go where it's low and inexpensive and where a lot of people can fit. And believe it or not, in the neighborhood, sometimes even that is a challenge. So I'm just giving you the challenging news, even though there's a lot of good news, because the data is slowly getting to be accessible, and that's our goal. So we are working in the Borough President's Office. March 6th, we're having the Manhattan Hack League. It's a borough-wide competition for high school students. Students will use open data portal to identify civic problems and create solutions and then present to a panel of judges. And then at City Hall on April 17th, the same thing will happen on a citywide competition. We can't do enough of this to be able to make sure that young people feel that they have a role in the future of open data and then it can be good for them. I also want to just mention, I know when we talk about smart city, that's what the data is also supposed to be used for. And I think that's what the wonderful folks at City Hall are trying to figure out. You know, we want to know, for instance, I know that nonprofits are saying, you know, we can tell you what the heat is in your apartment if it's on or off, so that when the inspector comes and says it was off when it was on when they showed up, you have the real data to show that it was off previously. That kind of information gives people in the neighborhood hope that the data can be there for them. And that's not something that is as clear until you make it very, very usable. So we're also trying to use LoRa in our office, trying to figure out how we can get the wireless standard so that it's accessible to people, and the same thing with NYC Mesh. I think that you can hear more from Daniel, who's standing right over there to talk about these things. How can you get the low-cost accessibility for contact so that people can have a network that's accessible and affordable? Because so much of the contact through the larger companies is too expensive for so many New Yorkers. So I'm here to say that it's an exciting time in New York. I'm really excited about the folks who are at City Hall trying to we have 80 city agencies. The only budgets that are larger, United States, State of California, State of New York, and then New York City. So we're bigger than every other state, and we're bigger than half the countries in the world. So when people get upset that things aren't moving quickly, just remember all of this, that it is a very large, very complicated city. But we have to keep pushing to make sure that the people who have least access have the ability to use this data for their families and their needs. Thank you very much.
Now, does everybody know why Gale Brewer is so awesome? Like, just to context. 10 minutes. Well, we'll have another session in 10 minutes. So I'm sorry, Ben. Next year. Gale is so awesome that she was part of the Charter Revision Commission back in '89 that made sure that COPIC existed. Right? They made sure that the public advocate existed. Has sat here, fought here, walked here, attended every single meeting in Manhattan, seemingly, to ensure that we have the best city possible. And it is a great honor to have her as our fairy godmother for civic tech. She is an amazing, dedicated civil servant, and it has been an absolute honor to work in her shadow over the last few years and to have her support for this ecosystem that we are all a part of. So thank you, Gale, for being here and your dedicated support. She hates compliments, but